Everyone, welcome to the Thursday, April 7th special city council meeting. Madam Clerk, can you please take the roll?
Councilwoman Marino, present. Councilwoman Renzulli,
Present.
Councilwoman Vargas. Councilwoman Jermaine. Present. Councilman Donegan. Councilman Campiano,
Present.
Councilman Riley. Councilman Ferry,
Present.
Council President Paplaskas.
Present. This meeting was called in accordance with section 3.07 of the Home Rule Charter and section 2.04.060 of the City Code. This meeting has been called to order. I'd like to entertain a motion to take the agenda out of order.
Motion to take the agenda out of order.
Second.
Okay, any discussion? There being none, Madam Clerk, please take the roll.
Councilwoman Marino. Yes. Councilwoman Renzulli,
Yes.
Councilwoman Jermaine,
Yes.
Councilman Donegan. Councilman Campiano,
Yes.
Council President Ferry,
Yes.
Council President Paplaskas.
Yes. Before we begin, I'd just like to welcome the Honorable Mayor Ken Hopkins to the chambers. Welcome, Mayor. Good to see you as always. First up, we have the advice and consent and appointment of Robert Zarneski as Finance Director. But before we get into any discussion on that, I see Director Moretti at the podium, and I will open it up to you, sir.
Yes, thank you very much. Mr. President, because of the criticality of this position with the meaning of the appointment of the finance director to the city, and in light of some questions and concerns that developed last night, the mayor requests a continuation so that we can provide supplemental information at a later time.
Motion to continue to the full council. Is that something we can do?
When you say a later time, do you have a time frame that you would like the council to accommodate?
I would say approximately a week or two.
Okay, because there is a time deadline, obviously. We heard from the solicitor, so just bear with me for 1 second. I want to make sure we stay within that time frame that the charter provides. All right, we have a motion on the continuance by Councilmember Renzulli. Do we have a second on that? I need a second on the motion for continuance for discussion. I will ask one more time for a second. I see no seconds. Then the motion fails.
Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you. Do you have, Director Moretti, do you have any introduction or anything you wanted to say from yesterday where we left off?
Sure. I think all council members that are here this evening were here yesterday, so I think all would want to agree that I don't reiterate the introduction and qualifications of Mr. Zarneski. But what I'm kind of focusing on is last evening, there was a concern about one prerequisite for the position that was mentioned. It had to do with a charter requirement. In fact, that requirement in part states that the finance director, quote, shall be a person skilled in governmental accounting, budgeting, and financial administration. In evaluating that, and it does appear that Mr. Zarneski is qualified in all respects, except there was a concern about the issue of governmental accounting, focusing on the keyword skilled. Respectfully, we submit that skilled does not mean that the director needs to be a practicing accountant that does the accounting. As you know, there's other people in the department that do that work. And certainly if those positions are being filled, we would want to fill that with an accountant that populates those columns. So however, looking upon the definition of skill, which I think is critical here, so that seems to be an issue. Webster's dictionary does say it is the ability to use one's knowledge effectively and readily in execution or performance. We feel that Mr. Zarneski certainly is skilled in the area of governmental accounting. And I have to say, and this is my own personal comments, I'm a certified public accountant. I have been CFO of companies before. I've been a controller for $1 trillion business. I've been an internal audit director of a $1 trillion, billion dollar business. I certainly would have no qualms about hiring Mr. Zarnetzky as a chief financial officer of that size a business. He has that skill set. To try to hone in on a word with the fathers of the city, but using a word skilled, which the Webster's dictionary supports, that's not relevant. In this case, certainly expert in the field might pertain to other positions as said, but certainly this gentleman deserves a fair shake. This position is too critical to the city. What's the next step? We're in the middle of a critical budget season. There's some, financial waters that need to be guided through. It's not politics. This is as sincere as it gets. I lost sleep last night, not because of my position, but because of the danger by not awarding Mr. Zarnetzky this position. We are putting the city in jeopardy. And frankly, I hope you realize that. To be bigger than politics, to be getting bigger than party, to really look at, evaluate this person. Does this man have it? Does he have the character? Does he have the expertise? Does he have the wherewithal? Can he use that information that Mr. Igo produces to be effective in helping every resident in the city and being fair and being truthful with the city council and being truthful with Mayor Hopkins when he disagrees with Mayor Hopkins, because he's going to. Mayor Hopkins hardly knows Mr. Zarnetzky, but it's certainly working with him at a distance, if you will. And Mr. Zarnetzky's been helpful at the state, giving some advice to Cranston in terms of options and interpreting the opera rules that by way of example. It's just too critical to this city. And I think the city will be put in jeopardy if he is not appointed at this time. The city has been recruiting this position for the last year. Mr. Strom expressed that he would be leaving at the beginning of 2022. He stayed on a couple of months. So networking started then. We didn't just end up with one candidate, Mr. Zarnetzky. That doesn't mean he's the bottom of the barrel. He was the top. We're fortunate to have him. We don't know where to go after this. A year went by, there were 6 applicants. There is no one else we plan on presenting. It will be a long time, unless someone comes out of the woodwork, before the administration is able to present another candidate. So I ask your consideration in every respect from Mr. Zarnetzky and truly evaluate the person that he is and the background that he brings to the city. Truly ask you to consider that with all my heart. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Director Moretti. Director Perillo.
I just want to reiterate, we've had the same questions and the same concerns regarding Mr. Zarnetzky that the council has. But we have vetted him, we have met with him, we have utilized his skill set when it comes to opera, and he's someone that we feel can do the job for the city. Like Mr. Director Moretti said, even though we only had 6 applicants, Mr. Zarnetzky stood out above all others. No other person had the municipal experience that he had. No one. We questioned the skill set, the accounting, the wording of the charter. He fills the bill for the city. And it doesn't do the council any good not giving him the opportunity to represent the mayor and the administration in going forward. If he's not doing a good job, Mayor Hopkins has the ability to move on from him. There's no harm in giving him the opportunity to take the job, take the reins, and move forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Director. At this time, I'd like to open it up for questions from the council. We do have a budget hearing at 6 o'clock. Real quick, Director Murray, and that's the last one before I go to council
No,
members'
thank-
comments.
Thank you. I forgot to mention this. I believe there's current Finance Director Strom submitted a letter to the city clerk. I wonder if she could read it and present that to the council. If she has that, I think that might be something of value.
Thank you, Director. When was the letter dated? Rosalba?
It was dated today. I received it this afternoon.
Okay, do we have,
It was addressed to the city council, CC to me, the mayor, and I believe Mr. Moretti.
all right, do you mind reading that briefly to the council, and then we're going to go to council member questions? Thank you.
Dear city council members, I respectfully wish to share with you my impressions of Robert Zaneski and his qualifications to succeed me as finance director. I have had the pleasure to meet and work with Rob over the past several months during the recent budget process and collaborate on the interpretation and availability of uses of ARPA funds. Throughout this time, he demonstrated an excellent understanding of accounting and budgetary concepts and the intricacies of municipal finance. Rob demonstrated that he is more than qualified to succeed me as defined in the city charter. Rob is well qualified in his own right based on his broad experience to be the next Cranston Finance Director. While I did have a degree in accounting, I do not believe that the next director needs to be a practicing accountant. If appointed, Rob will depend on Controller Mike Igo and Chief Finance Clerk George Forte, just as I did in the preparation of accounting statements and expenditure reports. I am convinced that Rob is skilled at understanding and effectively applying the disciplines of governmental accounting, budgeting, and financial administration as defined in the city charter. You and other councils have trusted me for many years as finance director. As your outgoing finance director, I hope that you will trust my judgment and recommendation and give Rob your support through his advice and consent process, along with the well-merited and affordable salary adjustment for him in his position. I am confident he will serve the administration and city council with honesty and objectivity for all Cranston residents. Best regards, Bob Strom, Finance Director.
Thank you very much, Rosalba. Thank you, Director Moretti and Director Perillo. Moving on to questions or comments from council members. I'm going to go to either Councilmember Jermaine or Vargas first, because they didn't have the opportunity to speak yesterday, if they have anything to say or add. Councilmember Vargas.
Thank you. Council President, many of the questions that I was going to ask were eventually asked yesterday evening. But I do want to say that I'm going based on the fact that the gentleman that's come before us and the candidate, I think you have a quite intensive and strong resume, of course, with experience in the sense of what you've done in those roles. But I'll be candid. I personally, while I understand that you took math during grad school or accounting, as you had noted yesterday, I took obviously classes as well while I was in college, whether it was art or history, but I'm not an art teacher, nor am I a history teacher or a historian working in that capacity. And so I will be voting against this, sorry, I'll be against your position this evening in terms of the finance committee, sorry, the finance director, only because I think that this is not a position that I actually feel that you would be able to be a strong suit for the city. And by all means, this is absolutely not personal, nor is it even political, is what I think is best, what my constituents is best, as far as making sure that the city has no structural deficit, that we continue to be a financially well-established city moving forward. And so I understand you were a town manager and you probably had a few members working for you in collaborating and putting together a budget. But I think that if you were coming, perhaps even as chief of staff, I would probably say, by all means. But as a finance director, I just don't see this this resume being positioned in a finance role for the city. We have a lot at stake. We have federal dollars coming in. Obviously, we're in budget season. And so hearing you yesterday and your responses to the questions that were being asked, in my right mind, I would not be able to vote on this advice and consent this evening. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Jermaine.
Thank you, Council President. Most of my questions were answered yesterday when my colleague asked, and in your response, Mr. Zarneski. But I would like to reiterate this question. Have you ever worked as a finance director?
I've never held the position of finance director for a municipality. I managed a small business and handled the finances of that.
I'm talking about.
Nope, I have never held the position of
municipality.
finance director.
Have you ever worked as a finance director for a municipality?
I have, as my resume indicates, I have never had the position of finance director.
Thank you. Yesterday, my colleague asked you a question about the reason why you resign at the town South Kingston, is that right?
That's correct.
How is your collaboration skills?
I argue that my collaboration skills are excellent, that I work well with people and in fact worked with a finance director in South Kingstown to great effect, to very good outcomes with the city's budget and very good outcomes with the general state of finance, very good outcomes with regard to the information technology program that was within that department, and good outcomes with regard to contracting. One of the things that I do think is important to recognize is that in South Kingstown, I didn't have a comptroller. Mike Igo was the equivalent, that position is the equivalent of what the finance director did in South Kingstown. So I had to work with the finance director on a daily basis and did so enthusiastically.
How do you see yourself with when you have some difficulty or hard conversation and you run away, I will say, or you resign? So how do you see yourself in the next future? You have some disagreement with the council and then you're gonna just resign again?
So in South Kingstown, the town manager reports to and serves at the suffrage of the town council. In Cranston, the finance director reports to and serves at the suffrage of the mayor. So it's a very different dynamic. My view of the way that a manager-mayor form of government does work and should work, is that the manager works for the town council. When a town council majority no longer believes that its philosophy, its view of the world meshes or is consistent with the view of the world that the manager has, That's an irreconcilable difference. And they have the right to ask for, they have to do it under, the terms of a contract. They have to follow the law. They have the right to ask for a manager they have the right to fire a manager. They have the right to simply discharge a manager. If they have cause, in most systems, in most municipal governments, if they have cause, they do so. But even if they don't have cause, and there's a friction among a majority of a council and the manager, it's not good for a community for that to continue. I didn't resign from South Kingstown because I was unhappy with conflict. I resigned because it was in the best interest of the community, given the dynamics between the council and the manager. It just didn't make sense to continue with conflict.
In
They-
your resume, you say resign because the council changed. That's why you say, that's the change of the council.
I'm sorry, I said that where and when?
It says change in council, so that's mean you have a type of council you could work with. That's how I interpret it. So
So I think.
as a person who has skill to collaborate, teamwork, you should be able to work with any council, right? So when you say for a change of council, this is pose a problem for me. Because whoever has an experience, the skills, you should be able to work with everybody. So change of council, that's language. Resign because of a change in council, this is speak to me. So you have a really impressive resume for any other position. And my colleague said, as a policy analyst, okay, you have background in politicals, very impressive, really very impressive. With all due respect, but I don't feel comfortable to vote for you as a finance director.
I would like to just address your concern about the need of a public servant to be able to work with anybody. I think it's important for people to be able to work with each other. We all know, I've been a city councilor, I've sat in your chair, and we all know that that's just not the reality. Conflicts arise in groups. And there are conflicts that even cause people to switch parties, which is a pretty big thing to happen. Conflicts arise. And the question for a manager and a town council in the manager council form is, are these tensions such that we are better, that the community is better off? As a manager, my job really is, or was, to make sure that I was advancing the interests of the community. And when I could no longer do so effectively because of a change in philosophy of people who wanted a different set of outcomes than I thought were appropriate. My professional judgment, and we talked about this last night, was that the budget structures were going to do detriment, and that I'd advanced a budget based on my best professional judgment in consultation with, in this case, the superintendent and the finance director. And that wasn't something that the philosophy of a majority of the council, or actually it turns out that that was a philosophy that a majority of the council was okay with, but a critical element of the council was not okay with. That was the setup for an irreconcilable difference of opinions. There are places where that would not have been an issue. Had I been at South Kingstown for 10 or 15 years and had built up a rapport across the community, maybe that would not have been an issue. I hadn't been there that long. I was the new guy who was now propagating a philosophy, a position that a significant portion of the council simply couldn't get behind. And that was going to be a continuing source of tension. But your general point, that you have to make every effort to work with people, is absolutely correct. And I will say this, I had done everything I thought I could do short of changing what I thought what I, in my professional judgment, thought was the best recommendation for a budget. I didn't decide what the budget was. I made a recommendation to the budget. It was the recommendation that was the source of tension. And I think you're right. trying to figure out how to work with people is extremely important. I will also note that the context is much broader than I can get into here.
Thank you.
Thank you. At this time, all council members have spoken between yesterday's committee meetings and today, so I'll entertain a motion before entertaining any further discussion. Is there a motion on this, on the applicant of advice and consent of mayor's appointment, Robert Zarneski?
Motion to
I'd like to
approve.
make a motion.
Councilmember Marino,
Thank you. I'd like to make a motion this evening. I move that council withhold its consent to the mayor's appointment of Robert Zarnetzky to the position of Director of Finance, and that the council deny advice and consent concerning this nominee, Mr. Zarnetzky.
I second that motion.
okay, we have a motion and a second under discussion. Councilmember Renzulli,
I don't know if you heard, but I said motion to approve.
Oh,
before
I
council.
apologize, I didn't hear you. All right, so we can vote on competing motions. Okay, what is your motion, Councilmember Renzulli?
But my motion was to approve so that we could have further discussion.
So we have motion to approve. Do we have a second on a motion to approve? Is that correct? Do we have a second on a motion to approve? Why? We need a second to discuss your motion to approve.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion, a second, so we have competing motions. I'm going to defer to legal counsel because we haven't had one of these in a while. All right, so I'll decide which goes first. We have a motion to approve, so we need to vote. Are we- So well, you made a motion to approve and you made a motion to disapprove. So we have competing motions. They both have seconds. So now we'll have discussion like we would normally, and anybody has the opportunity to speak. But they will mirror each other and then we'll vote on both. Okay, and we'll vote on the motion to approve first.
That's fine. I just wanted to ask more questions. I
Well, we
I made
absolutely
the
can.
motion because I wanted to ask more questions.
We absolutely can. We 100%. All right, so we have a motion, we have two motions. We're gonna do the motion to approve first, but the discussion is gonna mirror. So Councilmember Renzulli, if you have a question, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Mr. Zarneski, I was looking further into your resume and I'm a little bit interested in your Six Sigma approach to, if you bring that into your government approach as well, and how you would use that as a finance director.
Sure. So I guess the important thing about Six Sigma is a philosophy, and actually I've pursued two different approaches throughout my career. One is agile management and the other is sort of Six Sigma, which is all about continuous improvement. And, you know, for me, one of the most important exercises for a manager, a new manager in any position to go through is to sort of do a comprehensive review of the entire system. So if we sort of think about how you approach this job in this community at this point in time, what I think, so let me take this differently. Let me try it this way. If I ask the question, how would I come at this on day one? What's the first thing I do walking in the door? The first thing you do as a finance director is you make sure you understand where all your money is. You got to understand the accounts and the controls that are in place for those accounts. So if you do what former boss of mine used to call it a top to bottom review, which I'd prefer to call a sort of comprehensive concentric review. But if you think about doing a top to bottom review or a concentric review, you go out and you talk to the custodial institutions that hold our money, that hold our funds, and you talk to them about what issues they've seen. Have there been any historic challenges in working with the city of Cranston? Are there any issues that have arisen in the past? Understanding the history, understanding where our money is and what the handling of the money from our custodian's perspective has been. It's then coming inside the organization and asking the question, who has access to these accounts and why? And reviewing whether or not we've got the right number or the right reasons for folks to have access to those accounts. Once you know where the money is, once you've had a chance to talk to the managers of those monies, and once you've had a chance to look inside and figure out what the controls are to ensure that those monies are safeguarded, then the next question is, okay, how do we want to manage our program going forward? And again, the top to bottom review is a question of then talking to division heads within the finance department, understanding what the challenges are, and making sure that everybody, every division head knows that they can come to you with bad news, come to the finance director with bad news, come to the finance director with problems. We do not want an environment where people feel that they cannot ask questions or raise concerns. I want folks to know that they can raise their concerns because I'm going to be asking questions. I'm going to be asking probably more questions than someone who was a practicing accountant would be asking. And I'm not going to ask those questions and say, I assume I know the next answer. I'm going to ask those questions right down to the root of any inquiry that I might have to make. So it's a matter of talking to the division heads, understanding every process, understanding every procedure that they're engaged in. I've already had a chance to review what used to be the CAFR, it's now the Annual Comprehensive Fiscal Report. I've had a chance to review it, and I have a pretty good handle on the broad parameters of Cranston's finances. But I want to know who's responsible for handling every ledger entry. I want to know that, and I want to talk to every department employee about how they're doing that. What's the internal auditor doing? What are the challenges and issues that the internal auditor has seen over the years? What are the issues she sees going forward into the future? Understand inside the department. Once you understand inside the department, right down to bare metal, then the next question is, okay, what's the relationship between the finance department and the other departments in the city? What are their challenges in dealing with the finance department? What are their concerns? What are their suggestions? What can we do to be a service provider to other departments, including the school department, importantly? How can we build a good working relationship with the school business official and the school superintendent? Because having a good relationship resolves problems, resolves conflicts. It resolves the sort of conflicts that arise when you don't have those relationships. When someone new comes in and doesn't, have those established relationships, it's not easy. So it's very important, I think, to make sure that you're doing that from day one. And then the question is, okay, now that we've got the custodians and an understanding of how that universe works and operates and concerns there, once we understand the finance department down to bare metal, and once we've got a good understanding of the relationship between finance in the city and every other department, now we turn to the work. And the biggest piece of work that the finance department does is the budget. And I mentioned yesterday that I thought that the South Kingstown budget was a tremendous example because it uses a program planning budget. It's an incredibly useful tool. You define your program for the long term, not on an annual basis. You're not trying to figure out what you're going to do for 1 year. You're trying to figure out what you're going to do for a long period of time. What are the goals that the city council, that the mayor have for the city for the next 5, the next 10 years? Then you build a plan that's going to get you to those long-term goals. And you seek to identify clear objectives within that plan that can be budgeted to on an annual basis. And then your budget is tied to your plan, which is tied to your goals. And that way you're not doing year to year back and forth, hopscotching from good idea or bad idea to another one. You're going from year to year to year, making steady progress on objectives that get you to the long-term goals. That's what we need to be building. That's what any municipality needs to be building. And you do that by having good working relationships with departments, and you do that by having good working relationships with members of council. So one of the things that I know might be a tension in a city where you've got a strong mayor and you've got a council sort of looking at the mayor's work product is, who's the finance director work for? And the answer is, legally, the finance director is working at the suffrage of the mayor. But I want this council to know that if I am appointed finance director, I will work with the council as well because there is no monopoly on good ideas. Nobody, no finance director, no mayor, nobody has all of the good ideas and can't learn from conversation, dialogue, and workshops around something as complex as a municipal budget of $330 million. So I guess that's how Six Sigma and constant continuous improvement works in my head.
And thank you for that thorough explanation. This budget is already done, though. So if you were appointed, it is how it is. Would you have the ability and the confidence that you could go through this and help us cut it now?
So I've spoken to the mayor, and I don't think he's happy about my position here, but what I've told the mayor is, I'm going to give my best professional judgment, and I'm going to share the information that people ask for every time I'm asked. That is a public servant's duty. I'm not, as a finance director, I'm not the mayor's person to just, push, the mayor's agenda. Now, let me be clear about that for a second, because this is a complex set of relationships. When a mayor comes to a finance director and says, these are my priorities, this is my program, this is my 10-year vision of where I want to be, and these are the objectives that I think we need to achieve in the short term. Can you help me build a budget to do that? The answer is yes, of course. I work for, the director works for the mayor, and that's an objective. That's the purpose of the position, is to help the mayor present a budget that achieves the long-term goals that he or she thinks are important, and to achieve the objectives that build to that goal. That having been said, when a council then asks, why is this built the way it's built? My answer is going to be a forthright explanation of why it's built. When I'm asked the question, what assumptions have you built into this? I'm going to tell you what those assumptions are. I'm not going to hide the ball from anybody, because it doesn't work. Systems that have people hiding the ball end up in a bad place. I'm not going to do that. So to answer your question very directly, if I am appointed finance director, this budget, which is presented, you guys know it can be improved. The mayor knows it can be improved. There's nothing that is perfect. And I will work with the council to make sure that we find those opportunities and where the changes can be made to, at this point, receive a majority vote of the council. I'll help.
Thank you. And to a solicitor or to our attorney, I just want some clarification, because I too walked into the meeting yesterday concerned about Mr. Zarneski not being a CPA, because that's the first thing I would think of. But there's no language in the charter, to my understanding, that says he needs to be a CPA. That's not the language, correct?
That's correct.
Okay, so the writing's on the wall here, but I'm just going to say something. We can't one day say, we have to follow the charter. We can't just be making, new decisions about, ward lines, that when the charter says this, we can't change the law today. If we want in the future, the finance director to have a CPA, then we can do a charter amendment, and that can be part of it. But we have to go by what we have today. So I think that, I hope that everyone could be a little bit more open-minded and realize that we're picking a piece of something that doesn't exist. It's not a requirement. A CPA, this is higher than a CPA. This is a strategist, someone who's doing planning, long-term planning, creatively, using technology. We haven't had that in a lot of positions. We've had people in positions for a really long time who don't change, who just move numbers from box to box. And, if nothing changes, nothing changes. So I will be voting to approve. I don't know if anyone else will, but this is not for us to hold back. We can't hold back Cranston. If you don't put in a finance director, we're holding back the city. And I don't think any of you want to do that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Renzulli. I'm going to give everybody an opportunity to speak one more time, just so that way we can move on, because I know we can see it. We have people here for budget hearings. Anybody else have anything to say? Council member Marino, just for
Thank
the
you.
record, once we're done with discussion, we'll vote on both motions.
Thank you. I'll be brief. One thing I share with the administration is that this nominee vote kept me up at night as well, but for a different reason. Our charter doesn't say CPA, it's Chief Fiscal Officer. The nominee before us has never served as a fiscal officer in a municipal capacity or a private capacity. He has never served in that capacity, and it is precisely for the reason that I am concerned about the longevity of the financial well-being of the city, that this nominee is not the person for the job. And I do not take this lightly. And that's all I have to say this evening. Thank you.
Thank you, Council Member Marino. Any other comments from council members? Councilmember Jermaine?
Thank you, Council President. I have, Mr. Zaniski said something earlier, and when Councilwoman Wenzuli asked him another question, and he changed his view a little bit. Now again, I already made my mind, I want just to mention that it's confusing. First of all, when I asked you about your skill, collaboration, teamwork, you clearly said you don't work for the council, you will work for the mayor. That's why you said. And then when Council Wenzuli asked you the question, how we will see the change will make to this current budget, and you said now, oh, I am not working, like I'm not doing exactly what the mayor will say to do, I will work. So I feel like there is a discrepancy here. So it's whether you stand or you work for the mayor or you work for the council, and you say clearly, no. So if I'm a finance director, I'm not working for the council, I'm working for the mayor. And now when you have another question and yes, you are like, so that's another point for me to really not vote for you. So I don't know where you stand right now.
So if I.
I don't think that was a direct question, Mr. Zarneski. I'm asking for
Well,
comments.
she did
from the-
ask.
I don't think she asked the direct question. Did you ask a question or did you make a comment? That was a comment. We're having discussion on the motion. Any other council members? Any discussion on the motion? Councilmember Donegan.
Thank you, Council President. Without going back through the minutes, I don't believe I've ever voted against in now my second term any mayoral appointment because I do believe that the mayor should have the people around them that they would like. But I share the concern that my Councilwoman Marino mentioned, that the finance position is so critical to the future and longevity of the city that while your resume is incredibly impressive, I can't in good conscience, I don't think that resume fits for this position. If you were here tonight for Chief of Staff, Director of Administration, Director of Policy, I would be unquestionably voting in favor. But for this position, I can't support it. And I don't come to this decision lightly. It's nothing personal. It's nothing personal, Mayor. I have to think about what's best for the city. And I don't see it for this position. So I genuinely am sorry.
Thank you, Councilmember Donegan. Any other comments from council members?
I just have a question. I don't know, maybe to you or solicitor or Director Moretti. Do we have, how long can we go without a finance director? Is that anywhere by law that we have to have a finance director at a certain, who is going to manage the money if it takes 6 more months? I'm just curious. It might be Mr. Igo. I don't know. but I know
That's,
that's a union position and
There is no rule or law on point. It's an administrative decision.
okay, thank you.
We're under this council member discussion right now. Any other comments from council members that haven't spoke yet? Okay, Councilmember Vargas?
Council President, if you don't
Yes.
mind, before we vote, just making
Yes.
sure again that we know which are the two motions on the
Yes.
floor.
We have, you want to state them? Yeah, I'm going to let legal counsel state them, and then we're going to vote on Councilmember Renzulli's motion first, and then Councilmember Marino's.
So the two motions that I have that are pending is a motion to approve of Mr. Zarnetsky, which was made by Councilwoman Renzulli, seconded by Councilman Campopiano. There was another motion made by Councilwoman Marino, seconded by Councilman Ferry, and that motion was, I move that the council withhold its consent to the mayor's appointment of Mr. Zarnetsky to the position of finance director, and that the council deny advice and consent concerning the nominee. And that's the motion unless the two people making the motions disagree with what I've written down. Those are the two motions that are pending presently, and it's at the call of the chair which motion is voted on first pursuant to Robert's rules.
Thank you. So the first motion was, that we're going to take up is the motion to approve advice and consent for Robert Zarnetsky. Motion by Councilmember Renzulli, seconded by Councilman Campopiano. Madam Clerk, please take the roll. This is to approve, so a yes would be to approve.
Councilwoman Marino,
No.
Councilwoman Renzulli,
Yes,
Councilwoman Vargas,
No,
Councilwoman Jermaine,
No,
Councilman Donegan, Councilman Campiano,
Yes.
Council Vice President Ferry,
No.
Council President Paplaskas.
Yes. Madam Clerk,
Failed 5-3.
fail 5-3. So the next motion is the motion to deny advice and consent. Madam Clerk, please take the roll. A yes would be to deny.
Councilwoman Marino,
Yes.
Councilwoman Renzulli,
no,
Councilwoman Vargas,
yes,
Councilwoman Jermaine,
yes,
Councilman Donegan, Councilman Campiano,
No.
Council Vice President Ferry,
Yes.
Council President Paplaskas.
No. Madam Clerk,
Passed 5-3.
5-3. Advice and consent did not pass. Next on the agenda is ordinance 3-22-02, sponsored by Mayor Hopkins. I believe that item is moot. I'll ask legal counsel. Okay, we can take this up because it's for the position, not the person, unless the administration wants. So we're going to take up 3-22-02 unless the administration wants to withdraw it. This is on the finance position. I'll entertain a motion on 3-22-02. This is on the salary schedule. It's properly before us. If we have no motion,
What'd you say?
can I ask a
Second.
question?
we have a motion to deny in a second. Under discussion, Councilmember Renzulli.
I'm sorry, I just had a question. This is not applicable going to the position itself. It was just to Mr. Zarneski, correct?
I think
Or
it's,
is the raise applicable to whoever would come next? Because if we, and I'm just putting this out there, even if we use an executive search firm to find the best and brightest human from across the country, we're going to spend more money looking for the person. Like we'll spend half as much money as we pay the person. So someone who is at the level that, and maybe we need to be more clear exactly what we're looking for. to whoever it is that's looking for them. Otherwise, we're going to keep getting people that are not, going to meet our expectations, and we're going to waste a lot of time and money in between now and then. And then we don't even have a salary that someone at that level would want to take. Just throwing that out there.
Thank you. And to answer your question, this is to the position, not the person. So under discussion, Councilmember Donegan.
I'm actually contemplating withdrawing the motion, and my rationale behind it is my understanding of past council rules is that if something is brought up more than once, or if something is denied, it cannot be brought up again in the same term. And so I'm wondering if we were to deny this tonight, I wouldn't want it to prohibit administration from leveraging a potential salary fluctuation for any new candidate. So I don't want to tie their hands off the bat in that regard.
Yeah, that's a great point. I didn't think of that, but that is true. We can only take up an item once per session. So I'm going to ask legal counsel if tabling it is still in action, because I think it's written, or if we just don't make a motion, it would fall off.
Obviously, whatever you set as a salary for the finance director is a policy decision and certainly a budget decision, but procedurally, if you disapprove of this ordinance, you are correct. You've taken it up during the session and that's it. If you withdraw your motion and you were to table, for example, this ordinance until such time as you may be done with the budget or as part of the budget, you may think otherwise and, bring it off the table and perhaps even augment that amount, to a different number. But certainly whatever you would decide in the session would handicap both the council and the mayor for the balance of the year with respect to setting a salary on this position.
Councilmember Donegan.
Thank you. My intention for both the my intention in this motion was not to tie the hands of the administration or block a future finance director nomination or salary negotiation. So I will withdraw my motion to deny.
Is there another motion?
Did I second that? I withdraw my second.
No, Councilmember Donegan withdrew his motion. Whoever made the second, would they like to withdraw their second? Oh,
I withdraw.
okay. So do we have another motion on this ordinance? Do we have a
I
motion?
just
to
have one question first. The administration could withdraw this ordinance this evening, which would not then prejudice them from resurrecting the salary, the specific ordinance again,
Correct,
and would avoid it potentially being denied this evening, correct? So it would,
correct.
okay. And they have not chosen to do that as of now, correct?
Director Moretti, would you want to withdraw this ordinance? So that way you can resubmit it in the future if you need be?
No, we don't want to withdraw it. We think it's appropriate. We are not able to find someone qualified, which we're quite uncertain now as to what qualifications to find, but I think we need to raise the threshold in order to recruit for this position, because it's proven for over a year it's not competitive. Mr. Perillo has some statistics to say how out of line Cranston's salary is for this position. And we find it necessary to allow us to recruit someone. Otherwise, you're not going to get what you think you're going to get. So we'd like to.
Thank you. Director Perillo, please send us that information or email it if you have a salary comparison. And I think at this time, the prudent information is you just table it so it doesn't go away. And then we have the option to bring it back. Let's get a motion and then we'll do discussion.
Motion to table?
A
Second,
motion to table in a second. Councilmember Vargas.
Yes, just a quick question. When we table an item, how long are we able to table it for? Indefinitely? But we
3 months, we do 3 months. Yeah, we usually do 3 months at the council level. And at that point, we can either retable it or it falls off the table. So we'll just keep it, it'll be listed on the docket too, I believe, as we go on for the next 3 months. Is that correct, Madam Clerk? it'll be listed on the docket. So we'll be able to see it at council meetings if we wanted to remove it from the table and take action. Councilmember Jermaine.
What is the outcome if we vote for it tonight?
What is that? I'm sorry.
So what would be the outcome if we vote for it tonight, not table it?
If we vote to, if we vote to deny it, they cannot be brought back for this session. So for the next, till January 1, when the new council comes in, this couldn't be brought back. If we table it, we have the option to take it off the table and hear it again. So it gives the council flexibility. And the mayor's office.
Okay, thank you.
Councilmember Donegan.
To take something off the table, does it need 2/3 majority?
Yes. But I think if it falls off the table, the administration could still resubmit it because we haven't acted. So, Councilmember Jermaine.
Is that a way to proactively prepare for the next finance? Is that this resolution a way to proactively prepare for the next finance director?
Yes, we're certainly going to begin to recruit, but we need, the administration feels we need that leeway salary wise to.
So you can
to-
say this is what you can offer for whoever we want to.
Yes, or up to that. I would assume I'd have to ask legal, but up to that limit, not necessarily that amount, but raising that amount, give them that flexibility to go to that amount if the person is credentialed.
But does not have one person attached to it,
No,
for whoever qualified.
it's the position, not the person.
Yeah, and tabling it isn't passing it, it's basically continuing it. It gives us the flexibility to bring it back in the future if it needed to be.
Okay.
Any other questions or comments before I call the roll? Councilmember Renzulli.
Is this the number that's already in this budget? Is it already budgeted at the higher rate for this year or no?
That rate, the higher rate is included in the budget. Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. I see no further discussion. Madam Clerk, please take the roll on tabling, on the motion to table this ordinance.
Councilwoman Marino,
Yes.
Councilwoman Renzulli,
Yes.
Councilwoman Vargas,
Yes.
Councilwoman Jermaine,
Yes,
Councilman Donegan, Councilman Campiano,
Yes.
Council Vice President Ferry,
Yes.
Council President Paplaskas.
Yes, I'll entertain, I see no further business before us this evening. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor, say aye. Are there any opposed?
Mr. President, point of order. I know this is not a stenographer here. Is, in case we have to reflect back on the record, is it required that there be a stenographer here?
I believe not because it's recorded.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay.
Thank you.
The meeting is recorded.
Thanks so much.
Thank you. Okay, we are adjourned. Thank you. 10-minute recess until budget hearing so everybody can use the restroom.
Okay, everybody ready? Good evening, everyone. It's Thursday, April 7th. I'd like to call budget hearings for the Finance Committee to order. Rose, could you please take the roll?
Council Vice President Ferry,
Present.
Councilwoman Renzulli,
Present.
Councilman Riley, Councilwoman Marino,
Present.
Councilman Donegan, Councilman Campiano,
Present.
Council President Paplaskas.
Present.
Okay, first department up is the Finance Department. We welcome you tonight, and we look forward to hearing your budget recommendations. Thank you.
Finance Department budget is on page 18 of the proposed budget. Sorry.
It's on page 13 in the hard copy.
Correct, yeah.
Richard, page 13 on the hard copy, 18 on the PDF if you're on your laptop. Mr. Igo, would you like to cover some points with us and then we'll open up for questions?
Mr. Igo, do you want me to? So currently the revenue actual, which is just interest, is running at about 53%. Excuse me, 46%. And Mr. Igo, I believe that's due to the reduction in interest rates for the investments.
That's correct, yes.
And the expenditures for the department is currently running at 56%. But I would believe that's a little low, Mr. Igo, only due to the fact that contributions to the claims are done sporadically. And if
They're
we.
done quarterly.
Quarterly.
The
So
contributions come in quarterly.
So that's where it stands now. And it looks like in the current request, they've reduced the interest rate or the interest that will be earned by 50,000, which would come in line with what the current rates are.
Any questions from council members?
Just have a comment.
Comment.
I see a bunch of city employees here. Just want to thank them all for their hard work. I see some on Zoom, and I appreciate Mr. Marchese being here to defend his office supplies. And again, sorry about that.
Is there anyone from the public here that would like to speak on the Finance Committee? Anyone on Zoom?
I see no public comment.
No public comment. Any comments from the council? Councilwoman Renzulli, you had a question?
Yes, I'm here in the severance line 51108. Mr. Igo, how was that determined?
Basically, it's an estimate. When Director Strong met with the different departments, he would ask if there was anybody planning to retire within that department. And based on those conversations, an estimate was arrived at.
Mr. Igo, could you please move the microphone a little closer?
Sorry.
Thank you.
So this might not be appropriate for the budget meeting. So under the finance department, we do expect more people to
It's
retire.
not just finance, it's the whole
Well,
city.
Okay,
except police and fire.
okay,
Police and fire have their own line item
Right.
for
Thank you.
severance pay.
thank you.
Through the chair.
Yes.
Just a point of information, currently in the finance, the director's position in this budget is budgeted at 139, considering everything else that just transpired.
Councilwoman Vargas, did you have a question?
Yes, I'm sorry. So I think with the auditor said probably just answered one of my questions. And then I would obviously assume that that extra 35,299 under the salary schedule is the dollar amount that's being allocated if in fact it was an ordinance proposed passes to increase for a finance director. Is that the, what's the, I'm assuming.
That's correct. The salary schedule, which is in the back of the budget, reflects the higher grade and step based upon the administration's assumptions that the new finance director will be coming in at a higher grade and step than the current finance director.
Thank you. The other question that I have on there was on the, or was it? Give me 1 second. I think it's on the other side. Yes, the bank charges. I know there's still about $1,300 remaining on there.
Yes, we have a monthly fee that we get from Brinks to deliver our deposits every day to the citizens banking site. So there's a monthly charge that we receive.
So have we haven't used any of it yet. So when do we get billed for it?
I don't know, Councilwoman. I'm not sure why it's showing zero. I don't know if it got included with the departmental expenses rather than the banking charges. I'll have to look into that.
Yeah, sir, if you don't mind, Mike, that would be great because I know that there was an extra $1,200 allocated in the budget for that.
Yeah.
And if we haven't even exhausted a penny out of it or, you know, and this is for the third quarter, I'm just wondering if
Yeah.
are we really gonna use a full
Mhm.
1,300 or so? So, thank you.
You're welcome.
Actually, when you do you mind sending it to the clerk so then that way we all have it? Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, we can move on. Next, we have accounting.
That's me.
That's you again?
That's my office, yes.
Okay.
Um,
Enlighten us, please.
Sure. Our office, as you probably know, is involved with paying all the bills for the city, as well as producing payroll and financial reports monthly, annually. We also do all of payroll tax filings. We work on the both the audit and the budget. And then we take a few days off in between all that. Our budget is going up primarily just due to the 3% contractual raise of the bargaining unit.
Any questions?
Through the chair. Through the chair.
Sorry.
Yes.
Currently, the expenditures are running at about 77.65%, which is running just about on budget.
I have a question.
Yes.
The 2021 actual was 500 $60,877, correct?
Yes,
Okay, and we're looking at a submitted number of 617,114.
yes.
What attributes to the $50,000 increase?
The two drivers are the $26,000 increase in salaries, which is based on the contractual 3%, plus two of the employees within the department are receiving steps, which are contractual as well. The other increase, majority of it is hospitalization. As we plan this budget out, we budgeted a 10% increase because of the deficits we've been accumulating over the past several years. So we increased hospitalization in all departments by 10%.
All right, so we can assume that this budget is pretty much, for that department, is uncuttable based on the fact that we have contractual obligations
Correct,
for medical and salary.
correct.
Okay, anyone else have any questions? Councilwoman Renzulli.
Thank you, Vice President Ferry. Mr. Agro, could you, the differential, who is getting the differential? Can you tell me? I don't, well,
There's two employees within my office that receive differentials. The payroll clerk receives differential for doing personnel work, and the accounts payable clerk receives differential for doing work in the treasurer's office.
thank you.
It's,
Point of information, any of the contractual pay increases that are due to the contracts will also, you'll see, just to make it easier, you'll see the payroll taxes increase, the health benefit increase, and the pension increase. So it's just a full package. So if there is a contractual increase, these other expenses will go up with it also.
Any other questions? I'm going to ask you a question. Are any of these other items here under Finance Department that you're responsible for before we ask Mr. Marchese to come up for contracts and purchasing?
No, I'm just here as in the finance director's capacity as he's no longer with us.
Okay, so next would be contracts and purchasing. Councilman Donegan? Revenues last on this. Good evening, Mr. Marchese.
Good evening, Councilman Ferry.
Contracts and purchasing, please enlighten us.
Contracts and purchasing. We process all the purchase orders for the city, approvals. We handle the board and contract and purchase meeting with all the different departments requesting to go to bid or to ask for waivers. We process purchase orders that go to the accounts control to pay the bills after. I also take care of all the school departments, bonding and bills that come over, that comes through the city. I also take care of the fixed assets for the city. I handle all the purchasing for all the 26 departments for the city. And also I some of the quasi agencies, if they need any help with anything, like some of the little ones, I take care of too.
Council President Paplaskas.
Thank you, Vice President Ferry. Mr. Marchese, thank you for being here. I frequent the building sometimes during the day and you're like a ping pong ball in and out of the offices. You seem like a very busy guy. How many people work in your department?
Besides myself, my purchasing clerk one.
Okay. So it seems to me you have a lot of work and a lot of responsibility. That keeps you pretty busy. Okay, well, thank you for all you do.
Also, I helped out the city council when you guys had to do the updates with the Zoom and all the cameras.
That's
and all
right, you
that.
did. Before Tom came in to help us out with the day-to-day audio-visual, Mark was the point guy to make sure that we had cameras and everything was working in here and worked with the vendors to make sure that we were all set. And I really appreciate that, Mark.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Mr. DeMayo?
Yeah, just a point of information, the current expenditures are running about 76.58%, which is just about on point. There is a shortfall, Mr. Marchese, on the scrap sales, if you want to just fill them in. It seems that it's,
We'll be going out to bid for that. Usually we go to bid for that mid-May, early June, and we try and get all that stuff done. I deal with the fleet manager, Gerard Scotty, and we do that. We wait towards the end. So all the stuff that's unusable for the city, the vehicles and equipment, we wait till the end so we can put everything together, and we should hit our mark this year again.
so just a point to the council, they basically inventory and tag what needs to be scrapped. And then they go for the tonnage rate. And then what they do is they
No,
put
there's
them
no
up for
tonnage.
sale.
Usually it's just the older trucks that we put out of use. And sometimes they still run, so we still get some decent scrap money for them.
And that would be on a reverse bid system, not the lowest, the highest.
Correct, is the highest.
Councilwoman Marino?
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Marchese, for coming in this evening and presenting your department to us. I had a question with respect to the revenue of actually the scrap sales. It looks like the goal for the fiscal year was $15,000, and you've met that mark already, and we still have, some months ahead of us. I'm just wondering how much more anticipated revenue you anticipate.
Oh, no, nothing. I really haven't done anything yet. I've only had like one scrap of a $100 gaming box from the fire department so far. I will go out like in the middle of May, and that's like the reason you do it once.
So
is
it's the end of the year?
Yeah. the end of
Okay,
the year.
gotcha.
And
Okay,
towards the end of the fiscal year, we try and get all the money in before June 30th.
thank you.
That's the goal.
Any other questions? Councilwoman Vargas?
Yes, good evening. So I just had a quick question. I know in the department expenses that it's listed on. There was about $2,000 allocated. But then under remaining balance, it says then 4,900. Just curious.
That's a surplus, actually. I usually receive a check once a year from a supplier from the WB Mason. And I'll put that into my expense account, and I try and help out other departments looking to buy things.
Okay, so then that 4,900, that difference is what came from Mason, and then you apply it to that specific department, though not any of the other ones, right? Because it
No,
has to
it
do
go-
with that
it
one.
goes into one, and then I help suffice other departments that need some help with some stuff. If not, it'll just stay in my account and leave as a surplus. General fund.
Okay, so is it fair to say that that $2,000 allocated right now would be sufficient then, because you would get this payment once, is it once a year? Probably?
Yeah, but that could stop too also.
Okay,
It's just.
Just want to make sure.
correct.
This is a surplus.
So.
Yeah.
Yep. Now a positive, but it's because I think Mark's saying that he just ended up getting funds through WB Mason, correct? Yeah, yeah, yep. Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Councilwoman Renzulli?
Thank you. Mr. Marquez, I noticed that there is a vacant position, a senior buyer. I'm just curious if you feel you need that person in your office, what they would do exactly, and if you know what a step one salary is.
Yes, I'd like to have a senior buyer. What happened about 6, 7 years ago, my senior buyer retired and I had a clerk and we paid a differential for that clerk and then she retired. And then a couple years ago, I wanted a senior buyer, but the administration came up with a purchasing clerk instead as a grade 15. I would like a senior buyer. That was on my wish list, to have like a number 2 to do all purchasing functions, to help me out with the bids and the meetings, which I do get help from the city clerk, the purchasing clerk, but just a little bit more to pass on some of the other duties that I do. It would be beneficial to the department.
Do you have an idea of what that pays?
The clerk pays, excuse me, I'll get it right over here. The clerk's job pays, well, it's in this budget this year at 40, I think it's gonna go up to like 46,000, I think it's in the budget somewhere.
That's the same as a buyer gets paid around that amount?
46,950. The senior buyer / fixed asset, to give some of the duties to that senior buyer, and because I lost a fixed asset coordinator also. The 24-1 would be a $52,973 salary, possibility of, I don't know if that included the 3% raise that goes in by contract, but that was just like on my wish list. So then I could give, bring the person up to the level of doing it, and actually the person that's working for me would be fine for that job.
Is that a union position? Do you know?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Anyone else? Mr. Marchese, I just wanted to point something out. Your 2021 actual was 211,078, correct?
Yes.
And your projected 2023 is 236,34, which is only a difference of $19,000.
Correct.
Do you see anywhere in your budget where that $19,000 could be cut out? I don't see it. It's mostly salaries. We're not going to take any more paper clips away from you. Do you see any amount in that 19,000 that can be cut besides what is in the budget right now?
No, not really.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for your time and your hard work. I know how hard you work.
Thank you.
Okay, next we have Treasury and Tax Collection. But you're the star tonight. Want to give us a little?
Mr. Capuano should be online. He said he'd be on the call if there were any questions that I couldn't answer.
Mr. Capuano, if you are online, you will be allowed to talk if anyone has a question. Are you there?
Yes, if you can hear me.
Loud and clear.
Excellent.
Okay, if you guys could give us a little explanation of what you do, and then we'll ask you some questions. Who wants to go first?
I'll go. The city clerk, city collector, basically they're in charge of collecting all the taxes for the city, including sewer tax, property tax for residential and commercial properties, tangible tax, and motor vehicle tax. They're also in charge of taking in all the deposits from the different departments. Usually on at least a day, on a daily or a weekly basis, depending on the revenues that come into departments. Those deposits are brought over to the treasurer's office and deposited into our accounts at Citizens Bank. They're also in charge of analyzing our outstanding taxes, and at the end of the year, they do what they call a tax sale. So if anyone's been delinquent, they'll send multiple notices of the delinquents. And if they don't bring the outstanding invoices current, their property is placed in tax sale where somebody has the opportunity to purchase that. And then they need to redeem it back if you so choose. With that, they, as I said, they send out delinquency notices. They're called dunning notices. And our collection rates have been outstanding over the past few years. We're in the high 90s. And we've also implemented several steps to improve the collection process, especially during the pandemic. We have an online bill pay system now. It's called Invoice Cloud. And many people during the pandemic, since they couldn't come into City Hall, we're utilizing this feature so that our collections stayed steady. We didn't really see a decline during the pandemic. And now people are used to using it. There's a minimal charge if you want to pay on the Invoice Cloud. I think it's like 60 cents or something like that. So it's really been beneficial to the department and the city because, you know, we used to have lines all the way down the hall. I don't know if anyone's ever came in the past during tax collections on the quarter. You would have a line from one end of the hall to the other. And now that's all dissipated because of the use of this online feature. We also have a Dropbox collection, which is something that we use with Citizens Bank. So if you're not computer savvy, you can also just drop it into the mail. It goes to Citizens, what they call a lockbox. They send us a report of how much they collected and a tape so that we just upload the tape into, or a file now, it's not a tape no longer, a file to decrement our outstanding taxes.
And Mike, I can just further that a little bit regarding the Lockbox Procs and Invoice Cloud. Back in 2016-17, when I brought Invoice Cloud in and we implemented this, you know, I feel like it's been such a help for the city, for the taxpayers, and a win-win across the board. Every morning we get these files, you know, 99.9% of the time, there's no issue with these files. I download these files, they're implemented through everybody's account. And obviously the girls in tax collection do a wonderful job with this when the system was imposed. So it's been a lot of work over the last 3 years, but it's done wonders for the city, for the collection rate, and for the taxpayers.
Any questions? Council President Paplaskas.
Yeah, I'd just like to follow up with what Mr. Capuano just said. I was on the council when the Invoice Cloud came up, and I remember those lines in the hallway that we used to get, people wanting to come pay their taxes. And I think you can probably see that as a reflection in the overtime on line 101. You can kind of see in 2017, 2018, I'm going to assume that overtime was to process payments. Mr. Rago, is that correct?
That is correct, Chris. And I take a lot of pride in looking at that line item back in 17, 18. It was some over $50,000. And with us implementing this, you can see the benefits that it's had through our office. You know, the girls used to have to stay many hours of the night with thousands of pieces of mail, one being online checks. Online checks were a huge problem to the city. We would probably get 10,000 per quarter that we literally had to make a copy of and then put in, so the girls had something to copy against that online check. Well, now Invoice Cloud, we have online check system through Invoice Cloud, and those checks are basically down to a minimum, maybe 100 a quarter.
Yeah, that's pretty amazing, Dave. And just, you know, give a shout out to your employees in the office. Certainly appreciate it. And I pay my taxes online. It's the easiest way to do it. And I hope everybody takes advantage of the system. So thanks again.
Thank you, Chris.
Councilwoman Marino.
Thank you. I'm not sure if Mr. Capuano, Mr. Igo want to address it. With respect to the revenue, the legal fees, it's appropriated for 200,000, but it's not anywhere near that amount. Is that anticipated?
That's correct. That's part of our tax sale process, and that won't happen until May.
Any other questions? Councilwoman Vargas.
Mr. Igo. So on the cash overage as well, then, I think it's, hold on. You foresee exhausting in that 359, that's on the ending balance under cash overage then? Which is line,
Well, cash overage is just, it's random, you know, we sometimes when they collect money throughout the day, they tally their drawers at the end of the day, and there might be an extra $5, $10, $15 in their cash register. So basically, it's money that we receive due to either they processed something at a wrong amount, or somebody gave us the wrong amount and it got into the account. So it's extra money that the city has received.
thank you. So if the person paid, a wrong amount, meaning extra, what's the process on returning that extra dollar amount back?
You can't identify the particular person that gave it because the register's open for 2 days at a time. So they collect for 2 days straight, the cash by customer. So it's all going into the one register. And then at the end of the day, they run a tape to see how much should be in the register and compare it to what's actually in the register. And the amount that's over is what goes into this cash overage line. So it's almost impossible to identify unless somebody came to you and say, hey, I gave you an extra $50.
I was just gonna say
Yeah,
that, if
that'd be
somebody
the only
comes over,
identifiable way
okay,
to-
otherwise there's no way to know who it
No,
belongs to.
no,
So at
there's
that
not.
point, it would become unclaimed property, therefore considered reportable item, right? Or do we just
We
keep it
don't
in our
even know
books?
who's the unclaimed property belonged to, you know? Like we do that with checks. If we issue somebody a check and they don't cash it within so many months, we have to send it up to the state of Rhode Island. And that's a process that's done within the finance department itself.
Okay, thank you. In that specific department, it doesn't look like there is, obviously, one of the questions I had, Council Marino just asked in terms of the revenue component of it. But I'll be asking actually this of all directors, and I totally forgot to ask yesterday. But if is there room for any cuts at all, at least within the department? My assumption is no, based on these numbers. And I'm just curious.
I wouldn't expect it to be because just like all the other departments, it's basically level funded from last year plus contractual increases.
Through the chair.
Thank you.
Mr. DeMayo.
Mr. Igo, can we get a clarification on the professional fees? Is that a timing issue that it hasn't been spent
That's
yet?
correct. That's the title search that the outside lawyers perform before we actually proceed with the tax sale process.
You anticipate that entire balance being spent?
Unsure, Councilman. It depends on how many properties. Because we notify the person, they have the opportunity to come in before the property goes for sale. And if they clear up their balances, it doesn't go to tax sale. So then we don't have to do the title search on the property, thereby reducing the expenditure.
Through the chair.
Mr. DeMayo.
As a point of information, that line item has been reduced in the current submitted budget by 25,000.
And just to your point, because we've implemented this invoice cloud system, we're finding fewer and fewer people are being delinquent with their taxes. That's why also, when we get to the revenues, you see that we decrease the amount of delinquent taxes that we need to collect because there's fewer and fewer dollars available each year for the city to collect in delinquent taxes.
Councilwoman Renzulli had her hand up first.
Thank you. Mr. Igo, why does it say that do we have a vacant city treasurer position that's unfunded?
That's correct.
So Mr. Capuano is not, wait, no,
He's acting as.
he's acting,
yes.
okay. Is that something necessary to fill, or can he do with the differential both of the things he's doing?
That's correct.
Council President Paplaskas.
I'll defer to Councilman. I think she had a follow-up.
I thought she was done.
How much does that pay city treasurer if it was a fully funded position? Has that been vacant for a long time? Mr. Igo, do you know?
About a year and a half.
Are you finished? I'm sorry. Council President Paplaskas?
I just had a point of information. Mr. Igo made a statement that since the invoice cloud came in, people are less delinquent. It's because you send like 7 emails that the taxes are
Remind
due.
you.
And the automatic system sends it at like 1:30 in the morning. So if you get up and you look at your phone, you're like, yeah, I know, I gotta pay my taxes. So it's doing a good job with that. I wish we could change the time that it sends out the automatic email, but it does let you know over and
Councilwoman,
over again.
The salary was about $70,000 for the treasurer.
Any other questions? Councilwoman Vargas.
Yes, I just had a quick side. I tend to ask this question every year to Mr. Strawman. He continues to tell me you can't do this, but given the fact that we're moving on to online system, or we have been online system on the postage system, I know it was just decreased to about $5,000. And that's all on the tax bills and everything else along those lines. But given the fact we're having more and more just taxpayers paying online, is that numbers a number that you foresee continuing to spend, like the full 125? I mean, it was reduced, but on postage?
Yeah, well, I think until our system incorporates everybody's email onto a property and onto a tax bill, we're going to be stuck actually sending the bills. A lot of the bills go to the big banks, because people escrow their mortgage payments. And that's another way that we collect the bigger banks. CoreLogic is the largest. They just send in one check with a big file, but all the bills go directly to them.
And so,
If I can just add in on that, that postage line item is for the entire city mail that the tax collection office is in charge of, that we send out every single day. So any outgoing mail is done by my office, mostly by me, going out to, whether it's senior center sending it over, whether it's canvassing, setting up 2,000 pieces, that all goes through that line item.
okay, so that being said, particularly the fact that you touch base on canvassing with people requesting mail ballots or anything along those lines, is that going to then increase the postage? Because we just decreased it by 5, so I'm just curious if that'll be a problem.
No, that won't be a problem.
Okay. All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions? Thank you. Council President, next listed on here is revenues. Is that, it's just a general, we're going to look at all revenues right now? On the small binder, it's on, starts on page 4. It says summary of revenues. Revenues. Then under that, it says departmental revenue. Yeah, Council President.
Yeah, I have a question to Mr. Igo. When do we expect to get the numbers from the state on what our pilot money will be and all that? Did we get final numbers yet, or we have
We
to wait?
haven't gotten the final, they haven't passed the budget yet. We've gotten the preliminary numbers, the governor's proposed budget.
So when, when
It's
do you
usually in May
expect,
sometime,
unless they don't agree on a budget?
unless they don't agree on the budget.
Okay, do they
Go
make,
into June or July.
do they make pilot money payments timely, or do you, every year, is it the same time?
It is, yes.
Okay.
They have a schedule. Usually in August, we get the pilot.
When's the last time we had to your knowledge, had a big increase in pilot money?
It's been pretty much level funded or actually decreased because of the way they classify property up at the prison.
Okay.
There's only certain categories of property that they will give you
Right.
payment, hospital beds and there's different criteria that they follow.
Yeah, I just have a pet peeve with that. I wish we got more pilot money for what the city provides for services up there and for the lost opportunity that we have. As you know, we've had Topgolf, pushed off and pushed off. COVID came in, that the Dayball building there was used obviously for COVID. I wish the state would consider that and give us a boost in pilot money to make up for that, to be honest with you. So, thank you.
So to answer my question, will he go over all the revenues? Okay. Do you want to give us a general synopsis of what you see here in revenues as far as increases, decreases, where we should be concerned or not concerned?
Sure. I mean, obviously, the biggest increase would be with the tax 2.85% increase that's proposed for residential commercial properties. We also lost money because the motor vehicle tax rate has dropped from $30 to $20. Conversely, though, the state aid that we get from the state excise phase out line item, that's increased because of the same reason, because it's supposed to be an offset. The motor vehicle decrease is supposed to be offset by the state as part of state aid. So then if you want to just go through each department, city clerk is up. I think we spoke about this last night a bit with the real estate, but there's also a corresponding expense that goes up because it's only a portion of these funds that we collect that the city gets to keep. And a portion goes to the state. So even though the revenue is up, the expense is up proportionately.
Through the chair.
Mr. DeMayo?
Yes, the city clerk's office is running at a 92% collection based on the budget allocated for 2022. If they consistently go at that rate, they'll be at about 4.6 million annualized.
Municipal court's proposed budget has an increase, slight increase. Well, no, that's actually based on current year activity. There's an assumption that the monies collected by the municipal court will increase as well.
Point of information, they're currently running at 72% of budgeted for 2022.
That means they're a little bit behind.
It could be just based on lag of deposits. If they don't deposit each day or the fees aren't received.
Okay. City registrar,
The city registrar. That went up a little bit, and again, that's just mailings, I believe that. For mailing lists during election year. City planning, that decreased. Last year, they had expected to receive a grant for their comprehensive plan. And they think that that money will not materialize again next year. Inspections also a decrease. Let's see what the main drive is.
As a point of information, the inspections is currently running at 105.78%, above budgeted.
Councilman Donegan.
Thank you, Chairman. Good evening, Mr. Igo. A real quick question on the building inspections revenue. Mr. DeMayo just mentioned that the budget as a whole is running about 105% to this year. The line item specifically, it's within group 1111. It's line 42160, building permits. Last year's budget was 805,000. The proposed budget for fiscal 23 is down just under 20,000. But to date, we've received 110% of fiscal year 22. So I'm wondering, what the reason behind having if we're 3/4 in and we're at 110%, but we're reducing projections for next year by 2.5%.
I
Why?
believe Mr. Rodeo's on the phone. He could probably take that question. No? His department is on the schedule for tonight.
That inspections is going to be coming up.
Hello? Hello?
Do you want me to? Hi, Director Rodeo. It's Councilman Donegan. How are you, sir?
Good evening. How are you? Thank you.
Thank you. I had a quick question about building permit revenue.
I was listening.
Thank you.
I know this year, coming up to the end of the fourth quarter fairly soon, we had a banner year with building permits. I just didn't think that we could sustain that moving forward for those values, so I dropped it a little bit from the other 805,000 by a couple of percent, as well as the mechanical and electrical permits as well.
Okay. Thank you.
We are going to be getting a presentation from building inspections shortly. So you'll be able to ask more questions to Mr. Rodeo at that time. Are there any other revenue questions? Anyone want to point anything out? Any concerns to Mr. Igo?
Oh, I did identify, if you guys want to take a note, when we were preparing the budget, there was an estimate that we didn't have at the time the budget was being prepared. So in the senior center, which is also coming up later tonight, Department 1606, I believe. Yes, so if you look at, let's see what page it's on. It's on page 8. I'm sorry, page 9, the top of page 9. We had left it at 0, and after talking with director, that number should be $75,000.
What line is that?
It's on page 9 in Department 1606, 47,150. Senior Services RSVP.
It should be 75,000?
Correct. That's.
Councilwoman Manzulli?
Thank you. Mr. Igo, what is that running right now?
0 in the proposed
No,
budget.
no, like what's the revenue for this year so far? I know it was budgeted for 55, so I'm just, the year before, so I'm just curious.
Right now, we've received $48,000 for the year.
Thank you.
Can, for, just through the chair, can we just have Mr. Igo repeat what Mr. Craddock said, just for people on YouTube watching are able to actually hear what Mr. Director Craddock just said?
Sure. It's a federal grant, and in the current year that we're in right now, we received $55,000. Next year, it's increasing to $75,000.
Mr. Igo was pointing out to us that it currently said 0 in the 2023
That's correct.
proposed budget. But it's really 75,000. Any other questions? Councilwoman Vargas?
Mr. Igo, under the revenue, the senior services, I know we are going to go through that department. Perhaps Mr. Craddock, Director Craddock can elaborate then, but I was just curious. The revenue there for under nutrition is about 850. It went down. Is what's kind of like the reasoning behind that, if you don't mind
No,
explaining?
there's a
only?
couple of contracts at the nutrition program services, and they are expiring in December, and we are anticipating that they will not continue, so that there'll be a decrease in revenue in that department. Correspondingly, there'll be also decreases on their expense side, because we won't have to be providing the services related to those contracts.
Okay, so either you'd be able to either answer this, or if not, I can wait until Director Craddock comes before us. Only because I do see the nutrition plan has been reduced under the mayor's budget under the senior services by $100,000. I'm just looking at the revenue. The revenue is less, and then it's obviously also been submitted as $100,000 less. I'm just trying to get a sense if that would affect any of our Cranston seniors at all in terms of the nutrition, and why $100,000 cut. We can wait.
I'll let the-
I can, you let the
yeah.
director? Okay.
I would. I mean, I believe that all Cranston people were going to be served. That was a discussion I heard when we met about this subject. And it was going to be people outside of Cranston that would be affected by it.
Thank you. I'll ask that direct question then to the director later on. Thank you.
Okay. Any revenue questions can be asked directly to any department head. Anyone else have any questions? Any public comment?
See no public comment on Zoom.
Get their hand.
That is the IT director for the next.
Thank you. Okay, I guess we can move on. Next would be information technology. Who would be covering that?
I believe Ms. Gunzio should be on the call.
Ms. Scunzio? You are currently on mute.
Good evening, everyone.
Do you want to give us a little preview of your budget and what it is that you do? We might have some questions for you.
I'm having some trouble hearing you.
Can you hear us now?
Yes.
Okay, we were wondering if you could give us a little preview of your budget and explain what it is you do, and then we might have some questions for you.
Okay. Basically, the IT department oversees the installation and maintenance of computers and the city network.
Okay. Any questions for the IT department? Council
Just
President Paplaskas.
Just comment, I just want to thank Elaine for getting the Wi-Fi done here in Chambers. I'm happy to report it's working great. See no issues so far, so thank you very much for getting that done.
That's wonderful news.
Sounds good, and I'll defer questions to my colleagues. Thank you.
Councilwoman Marino?
Thank you. Good evening, Ms. Scungio. I had a question with respect to the professional services on the proposed budget. It is providing for $104,000, and that was not previously allocated in prior budgets. Can you tell us a little bit about what that is?
Yes, we had our IT support person retire, and the city has chosen to hire an on-site engineer from our vendor. It has proven very beneficial to our department in the city. The city has otherwise saved money because if we had to hire someone with his skill set and knowledge, it would be out of reach.
In follow-up to that, do you know what the prior position salary was?
I believe I don't have those figures, but the finance director, Bob Strom, said the city did save money. But I don't have the figure that the previous employee made.
Okay, thank you. Director of Administration, Mr. Perillo indicated it may have been about 70,000, but I assume that's before any benefits.
That's correct.
Yep, that's correct. Okay.
Salary was $66,436.
All right, thank you.
Any other questions? Councilwoman Vargas?
Sorry, was that vacancy due to a retirement, a recent retiring during this current fiscal year? No, right?
Last
That
fiscal
wasn't it.
year
That
she
was last
retired.
fiscal year.
Yeah.
Okay. The kind of piggybacking a little bit on the professional services on, because we're outsourcing, correct? Are we outsourcing in what ways are we outsourcing when we're talking about professional services? Is it the maintenance of, is it the server? Is it just a person to come in?
It's he works 5 days a week, and basically, it's he waits on the needs of the city. So if there's printers down, if software has to be installed, if computers have to be deployed, he does that.
Thank you. I had another follow-up question, and that was in terms of the technology upgrades. I don't have the expenditures right now, but perhaps either Mr. Igo or the auditor does. Just like to know where we are in terms of the technology upgrade, system upgrades. on those two items if possible? Sorry. Computer.
Technology, you want to know what we're going to use the money towards? Is that
No,
what
no,
you're?
as far as spending, where are we at the end of the third quarter, where were we as far as spending?
This fiscal year you're talking about?
Yes.
Technology upgrades are basically at 100%. The budget was originally $250,000 and there's $426 remaining in the account.
And system upgrades?
System upgrades, system upgrades is actually over budget there. We have an original budget of $50,000. We spent $45,000, almost $46,000. And there's a $15,000 encumbrance still outstanding.
Thank you. And then on the computer maintenance and fees, please.
Computer maintenance and fees was budgeted at $350. There's encumbrances outstanding of $203,000. Actual spent was $95,646, leaving a remaining balance $50,945.
Okay, thank you. And so I'm just trying to get a sense as far as, given the fact on the computer maintenance and fees where it's software licensing, application support and all along those lines, you know, in terms of updating any, given the fact it's been on all three items, on the computer maintenance, system upgrades and technology upgrades, yeah, it seems to me that there's a lot of obviously to upgrade and there's a lot of maintenance, and I'm just trying to make sure, you know, how are we doing in terms of making sure that our systems are not breaching and that our cybersecurity is actually in place in terms of the citywide systems that we have, and what Microsoft service are we actually currently using right now?
We just increased our Microsoft O365 licenses to Business Premium, which brought the city up to 2019. And all our servers have been upgraded to the current version, except for the finance server, which the next fiscal year, starting in July, we're going to be starting on that server. As far as cybersecurity, we just enabled multi-factor, and we're going to start training for the city employees.
All right, thank you. And then is that part of the so that's part of technology upgrades, everything combined, correct?
Correct.
Okay, thank you. I don't have any further questions for the time being, Chairman.
Any other questions? Councilwoman Renzulli?
Thank you. Ms. Conjo, are there any plans if it's fiscally responsible to use outside vendors in the example earlier for a vacant position? Is that a practice we will continue going forward? Are there any other positions that would be better to be outside contractors? And is that also what Brave River is underneath the technology upgrade? Is that, what does Brave River support?
Brave River is a company that writes software. So they are the company that created our website, but they're also going to help our GIS manager with programming of like title cards and Transvan. So that's what we use them for.
Any other questions? I have a question for you, please. Your 2021 actual budget expenditures were 1,373,000, correct?
Yes,
Okay, and the 2023 budget for you is 1,550,000, which is an increase of about $180,000. Do you see any way possible in that, your budget, that any of that $180,000 can be cut? As you know, we're facing a 2.85% tax increase, and the school department is asking for more money, so, which could result in a 3% tax increase. So we're looking at every department, asking them the same question, basically. Do you see anywhere in that budget that any of that $180,000 can be cut at this time?
I understand what you're saying, but I've seen an increase of 10 to 30% in licensing and supplies. And a lot of our maintenance and fees line item is all contractual. And so is the telephone. So I really don't see where I can cut. We're trying to continue to upgrade and, so the city is current with everything. So I don't see where I could cut.
Councilwoman Marino?
Thank you. Ms. Scungio, the position of the on-site IT professional, that service, was there ever any contemplation of having that service be provided on a basis where it's only, let's say, instead of 5 days a week, 2 days a week, and what that savings might be to the city?
He was originally 4 days a week, and he also provides essential backup for me. And, at that one extra day, I was running around instead of doing, my duties. So that's why Bob Strom brought him in for an additional day.
What vendor is it?
It's Apex Technology.
So if I understand you previously, it was 4 days a week and it was changed to 5 days a week.
Correct.
Do you remember what the cost was when it was 4 days a week?
I don't have an accurate figure, but I think it was like 85,000.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? Councilwoman Renzulli?
Sorry, one more. The differential, can you please tell me who is getting the differential, what positions and what it is?
So our GIS manager gets a differential for doing GIS duties for the tax assessor. And I'm getting a differential for doing the IT manager position.
Mr. Igo, do you know what that IT manager position is just on its own? It was filled?
Same position that we just stated at 66,000.
The IT manager, step 1,000. And the employee that was there, a longtime employee, Bill Aguirre, who retired, was at the top step, 103, 79.
Ms. Scungio, that position itself, the IT manager position, would that cover some of the things that we're actually, spreading around and outsourcing or no? What is that actual job? Do you know?
No, I'm basically doing, it's, clerical. I'm also backup for IT support. I'm also backup for the switchboard. I do the budget. I correspond with all the vendors.
Okay, thank you.
I just had a quick,
Councilwoman Vargas?
sorry about that. Spoke before my turn. Just had a quick question. So the $104,000, going back to that professional service, is that in substitute of any of the, is that in, did we end up hiring, or is the idea to hire a person to do that work versus hiring in IT or the network manager position that Councilwoman Renzulli just mentioned?
The network manager position is the one that was left vacant in lieu of hiring the outside consultant. Their cost for that position last year was $107,000. So technically, it's over a $3,000 savings from what we were paying that person to what we're paying this company to do.
And we started paying that company already right now
Yes, last year,
out of that vacant position,
correct.
correct? So,
There's another vacant position that Ms. Scunzio was just talking about,
This-
information technology manager, the top position. And that's what she's currently acting as.
so what is Elaine's salary? She's right? Because they're reporting to her, correct?
Yes, as the IT manager, this consultant reports to her.
Yeah, what's Elaine's current salary then?
The salary itself is,
It's up here on the binder, 53,829.
that
Is
sounds
she,
correct,
is
yes.
she getting an additional amount?
Yes, the
What-
differential,
So how much? What's the total amount then? All right, so about 83,000, just to round out. And then we're hiring another person who reports to her. Well, not the person, but the outsourcing, that professional services that
yes,
report to
she's
her.
currently here, yes.
What, I'm just curious, why is that person making more than our city employee?
Making 3,000 less than the employee that was in that position previously. The cost for that employee was 107,000, was salary and benefits. We're having $104,000 this company to do the same function.
The contract company.
Elaine,
How
do you
long?
know that? Is it a 3-year, 1 year
What, a contract?
contract with Apex?
I think it's yearly.
So the one that we have now expires when? June?
I'm not positive. Bob Strom, he signed the contract, so I'm not sure.
Check with Marchese tomorrow and I can get you.
Yeah, if you don't mind, I'm just curious. I mean, would we at all have any type of wiggle room to negotiate that maybe from one board to a little bit less?
not sure,
Or
Councilman.
would we,
I
I'm just
don't know.
curious.
Just in follow-up, the outside vendor doing the IT support, does that person have a different skill set than someone that is already employed in the department?
I believe so. Elaine, if you have that,
I didn't hear the question.
does the Apex employee have different skill sets than people already employed within the division?
Yes, yes. Well, we have a GIS manager who basically, she does GIS, but she writes programs. And we have a network manager that kind of monitors our network, profiles PCs, basically maintenance of our data center. We have a programmer that helps the GIS manager, and basically the hired vendor is doing the day-to-day support, that people open tickets.
Thank you.
Council President Paplaskas.
I just have a question for Director Perillo, and it's probably an opinion question. I know a lot of departments are understaffed. Do you think IT is one of the departments in the city that's got the most staffing challenges because of the kind of work that's done in there?
I think they're properly staffed right now, so the role that Elaine has now, she took over as the manager, differential, so we're making savings there. Person from Apex, their skill set is much more comprehensive than the person that they replaced, and it's a set rate. So an employee, you have additional benefits, self-insured on healthcare, the healthcare cost could escalate, so we fixed our costs for a longer period of time. So I think they're staffed right where they need to be right now.
Okay, thank you very much. I only just, it's nice to hear about Apex because I think they do bring that different skill set when the cybersecurity issues come up and that kind of thing. So you got to kind of be on the cutting edge with that. And it certainly is a savings with the benefit package. So that's a plus. Thank you.
Any other questions? Ms. Gunzel, we thank you for your time. We thank you for your hard work. And we appreciate you talking to us tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good evening.
Thank you. Okay, moving on. Next is community development. I do believe that Mr. Sanzi is on Zoom.
That's correct. Good evening, Council. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Welcome. We'd like you to give us a little summary of what you do and introduce your budget to us, please, and then we might have some questions for you. Thank you.
Sure, absolutely. Good evening, Council. I'm Tim Sanzi, I'm the Director of Community Development. I'm privileged to have an exceptional staff, one of whom we just lost to retirement last month. And what we do as a team is manage the Community Development Block Grant, which is, if you do not know, it's a supplement, an annual supplement, seeing the city of Cranston is an entitlement city. We're allowed to manage an annual supplement or allotment from HUD each year. Most of the other municipalities have to request the funding through the state office. But Cranston is an entitlement city because of its population size, and we qualify to manage it ourselves. We provide a great deal of funding for programs that provide exceptional services to a myriad of practices within the city. And we do that with a lot of pride and a lot of personal attention and customer service to the people who need it, residents of the city of Cranston. I would add that our budget that was submitted for fiscal year 23 is an estimate. On average, the last 10 years, the city of Cranston has been awarded approximately $1 million. We have not been officially awarded. This year, Congress enacted the legislation and the allotments late. So HUD is presently trying to develop what our city and all the other municipalities are going to receive for this year. So I estimated it at $1 million. And $160,000 is program income, which is an estimate that we've had for each year. And the program income side comes from our loan portfolio that we carry based on the housing rehabilitation loans. We generate monthly income on that.
Councilman Donegan.
Thank you, Chairman. Good evening, Mr. Sanzi. First of all, I just want to say I appreciate earlier this evening, I had sent Mr. Sanzi an email asking for the breakdown of the CDBG allotment. And he very quickly turned that over to me. So I just want to thank you publicly for being so prompt in a response. There's about a 17% reduction in salary. Is that due to that retirement?
Yes.
Okay, so I take it that position won't be funded for next year?
Correct. I have made the assessment and asked that it not be funded. However, I have also asked that the present community development resource specialist be upgraded a couple of steps to fill a gap for additional responsibilities that she is undertaking.
How has, thank you for that answer. That makes sense. And I'm not suggesting any of them be reduced. Let me just preface my question with that. In light of a lot of the resources and some financial supports that have been put in place throughout the pandemic, how have some of the rental assistance, heating assistance, programs like that, how have those been going with the community with, kind of the abundance of other stuff, if you will, out there at the moment?
Yeah, I mean, aside from, they're very active, the answer quite simply, aside from the general CDBG grant, we've also, the city was also awarded in two separate allotments, approximately $1.1 billion for a COVID response grant, which we're about 3/4 of the way through in the last year. We've done everything we can to push money out into the community for a myriad of projects, from rent and mortgage assistance to economic development, business supporting grants for individuals and businesses, which that alone we've supported approximately 45 businesses with $176,000 of support. This is all COVID-related items. The senior center, cleaning the senior center, and providing a computer room, which they never had. We did improvements to the Hope Center. The crisis intervention team for the police department, that was also, those employees in that overtime for that project is supported through the COVID grant. We've done HVAC cleaning and isolation rooms at both CCAP facilities and various facilities, libraries, fire departments throughout the city, which have all been quite expensive projects. In addition, we have projects planned for this spring for broadband, which would be free Wi-Fi at the park over by Oak Street at Bain, as well as a splash pad there as well, among some other projects. The mortgage and rent relief, we're in competition with Rhode Island Housing, which is about $200 million, and their paperwork, quite frankly, is much easier to work through than HUD's. HUD has a tremendous amount of regulation and requirements for the applicants. But through CCAP, we funneled approximately $100,000 just for mortgage relief through CCAP for needy families during this very challenging time in COVID.
Councilman Donegan.
Thank you. Thank you, Director Sanzi, for all that. Sorry. I know that in the past, and based on what you sent, it looks like housing rehabilitation and housing acquisition are going to be two substantial allotments of the million. projected for next year. How is that? Have there been any properties acquired in the past, calendar year through affordable housing acquisition?
There have not. We are in competition. I think there were 7 foreclosures. We have to purchase foreclosed property in order to rehab that and resell that to a low to moderate income qualifying family. I think there was 7 in the last year. What traditionally happens is Rhode Island Housing will have them on a list and they'll buy them right up. So we're working with them presently, and also Pawtucket Central Falls Housing is we're working with them on a demo rehab project for low and moderate income housing right now as well. So we're working on that, but at the same time, because of the housing, the real estate market, it's very difficult to make an acquisition. We try to do 1 each year. I've taken some of that money and put it towards housing rehabilitation, which has really grown over the past year and a half, which I think is good for the preserving the housing stock. So we're getting a lot more clients that are coming in. We also did a little bit more advertisement last year for that. Because trying to make one of my goals is to make as many people as possible aware of all the benefits and opportunities that we can provide for them if they qualify.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate it. And thank you. I know, this department in particular does a tremendous amount of work and is, beneficial to the whole city, but particularly, the areas that I represent. And so I just want to say I appreciate your work and the work you do for our community.
Okay, any other?
Thank you. It's great to hear. Thank you.
I had a question.
Councilwoman Jermaine?
Thank you. I'll make sure I am in the right line item 51303, hospitalization BIPAC. You see it?
I do, Councilwoman, yes.
You see it? You get it?
I do get it. Yes, I do, Councilwoman.
He said yes.
Okay. I see for the past 4 years, it was 0, okay? And then we start an increase 2021 from 2,106, 2022 5,500, and 23 5,533. That's the first, and then the second page where we have the detail. Okay, go to the second page. And this is the same line item 51303, hospitalization buyback, and I see 0.
Yeah, that's a buyback for not accepting medical coverage for the city. That's because I have a retirement from the state.
Just anywhere? No, I just. Yeah.
Councilwoman, what page are you on, if you don't mind me asking? I'm sorry.
Yes, so I'm in the big banner. So we have a detailed page after. Okay,
Councilwoman, yeah, I can
You
explain
see
that.
it?
Yes.
Okay.
It's on line 51301 instead of 303.
okay,
It's up 2 lines from where it should be.
okay. Huh? Yeah,
Sorry about that.
Yeah, so I was like, I see, and it's still zero down here. It was, okay. It's, okay, that was my question.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Councilwoman Vargas.
Yes, I just had a quick question to the director, Director Zanzi. Good evening, or 8:30 almost already. But we last fiscal year for the budget time, you provided us a listing, I think, to Councilman Donegan and I, probably for the whole clerk, on the projects that you were foreseeing, like the programs in place that you would use the funds for FY '22. Do you have
Yes.
spreadsheet as well as for fiscal year '23 as well, and all set that you can share with us as well?
I certainly do, but just so you know, it is an estimate, but they are representative allotments from after we've had our advisory committee meetings. So it's a ballpark, but yeah, I absolutely can do that, Councilwoman.
Thank you. If you can actually share it to the clerk, so that way, if the clerk would then disseminate the information to all of us, that would be great. And is it my understanding that you're saying that there are available grants through CDBG right now for folks who apply?
Yes, I mean, there's a lot of different opportunities for different programs. As I mentioned before, we're going to advertise for the, actually, it should be in the Herald right now, the scholarship program, which is $1,000 scholarship. Last year, we did 18 students. This year, I think we're going to fund 14. Housing acquisition, housing rehab, down payment assistance, closing cost assistance, fuel, which is a big program. We only used to run it previously for 3 months of the year, but I opened that up for the entire year. Rental and mortgage, as well as supporting all of our subrecipients.
Okay, thank you. And I know part of the CDBG money goes towards, I'm looking visually here at a map that the city once had, and anything that was color-coded purple would pretty much be entitled to receive Title I funds, CDBG funding. There's a park on Smith Street that I think might be in the pipeline that falls under this purple line item under CDBG. Is that coming out of this potential, if that project goes on, is it coming out of fiscal year '23?
Yes, well, that was originally planned last year. I had actually planned the splash pad, Smith, Florida, and Whipple to accomplish. Unfortunately, the splash pad is going to take precedent. What had happened is a lot of the HVAC cleaning for the larger facilities that are entertained by a larger population, for example, the senior center, quickly consumed a lot of funding because of the expense. But, made a decision to prioritize that because we had to track it back. Everything spent on that COVID side has to be spent in planning, preparation, or prevention of the virus. And that was a priority that I still was capable of retaining funding the splash pad, but the other 3 parks are going to have to wait. That's a long way to answer your question, but as for right now, we're not going to fund the Smith Street.
That you're not, correct?
That's correct.
Thank you. That's 2 parks. All right.
Any other questions? Thank you, Mr. Sanzi, for your time. We appreciate you being here.
Thank you, Council. Have a nice evening.
Can we take about a 3-minute break? Please? Okay. We'll return in 3 minutes. budget hearings, everyone? Next, we have building inspections. Mr. Rodeo, are you there, Mr. Rodeo? You are muted. Mr. Rodeo, you're muted. *6 if you're on a phone.
How's that?
Can you hear us?
Yes, I can.
We can't hear you.
I just unmuted.
Okay, now we can hear you. Good evening.
Okay. Good evening, gentlemen and women of the council.
I know that everyone's pretty familiar with what you do. If you just want to give us a little explanation of what it is you do and introduce your budget to us, and then we might have some questions for you.
Sure
Thank you.
thing. So our role for the city is to enforce the state-adopted building codes, electrical codes, plumbing codes, mechanical and field glass codes, as well as the property maintenance code. And that's for new construction, renovation to existing structures, pools, decks, vinyl siding, roof, windows. So it entitles quite a bit of, quite a large area of building codes. We also enforce the city zoning ordinance, as well as we are secretary to the zoning board.
Through the chair.
And yeah, that's about it.
Okay, Mr. Question for you.
Now, just a point of information, the current revenue side is running at 106% of budgeted. And the expenses currently are running at 73%.
Okay, does anyone have any questions for inspections? Councilman Donegan.
Thank you, Chairman. Good evening, Director Rodeo. How are you, sir?
Very good, Councilman.
Just a few quick questions. I'll start on the revenue side. I know you had answered the question about building permits. I appreciate that. The other one is, excuse me, on solar permits. On solar permits, and which is line 42176 in revenue group 1111.
Yeah.
Fiscal years 22, it's budgeted at 60,000. For the mayor's proposed budget before us, it's 110,000. To date, we've already received over 200,000. And 3 quarters in, we're at 361% of what was budgeted for the last year. Is there any reason why it's so drastically high this year? And do you think that the increase in projections for fiscal 23 of $50,000 is too low?
Well, solar or the PV cells have come such a long way in the past couple of years. There are so many permits issued for solar this year. It's grown like exponentially. I can't explain it. I don't know if it's government rebates, but everybody's putting solar on their roof.
Do you think that's a trend that's going to continue, or is this going to be, just a one-off kind of blimp where we're going to see a major spike, and then it's going to come back?
I don't know if it'll be a spike. I think it's going to continue to grow as long as the government is pushing for more renewable resources.
Okay, I get, and so I recognize that the the percentage increase from fiscal 22 to the proposed budget is it's an 84% increase. That's a sizable amount. But that's still considered lower than what the actuals are for the current fiscal year. So do you think that it's going to sustain at that, over 200,000?
Well, yeah, I mean, I don't know about that. I'm hoping that it continues to grow or meet that number. But like I said, I don't know the answer to that.
Okay, no, I appreciate it. The two other questions, one is on part-time help, line 51200. On the expenditure side, the fiscal 22 budget is 35,000. The budget proposed in front of us is a reduction of $10,000 for a total of $25,000. To date, we're only at about 35% of actuals through the first 3 quarters. So I guess a reduction makes sense. But when looking back at previous years, part-time help is at numbers such as 59,000, 88,000, 43,000. And the previous fiscal year 21, the actual was 47,000. So do you think is it possible that fiscal year 22 is just an outlier in that it's running so below budget? And if so, do you think that reducing that budget might run a risk of potentially leading to going over budget given the historical actuals?
Well, in my 3 years here, there was a part-time help, an architect who was doing our plan review, and he was there for a couple of years, so that brought the numbers up. I'm not sure what they were paying him on an hourly rate, but I think it was north of $50 an hour for sure. We've since then hired a full-time position for a plan reviewer / inspector who has taken on that role. And I don't know what his salary is, but it's nowhere near that 80,000.
Sorry. My last question is regarding salary schedule. I do want to commend the mayor for adding a minimum housing inspections position. I do think that that's desperately needed, given the aging housing stock, particularly in Eastern Cranston, and the health issues that potentially poses to residents within the city. So I imagine that the salary schedule increase of about $108,000, is that due to that one increase position?
No, I don't think it was for the one. Was that a funded or non-funded position?
One person at 50,000. Okay. So
yeah, one person at 50,000. We hired somebody in last year's budget for. I don't have that sheet in front of me, so I don't know the dollar value.
Thank you. And for, I guess anyone, Mr. DeMayo, Mr. Igo, or Mr. Rodeo, whoever could take this. What is the total package for hiring a minimum housing inspector for salary and everything included?
Well, I think it starts under 50,000. So I'm not sure what the benefit package, what it comes to.
I believe based on the schedule, it's 60,000, 169.27, if I can see it.
That's correct. That's based on the assumptions, yes.
That's correct. It's broken out, Councilman, in the binder, in the big binder. It's got a page.
Is it over the steps or over the term of the step increases?
That's just the allocation for the current proposed budget.
Yes,
Oh,
the
okay.
person was budgeted at step 1, 2. The person would come on at step 1 and 6 months later go to step 2.
Councilwoman Renzulli.
Thank you. Mr. Rodeo, can you just maybe clarify for me? Last year, I know we funded half an inspector, and maybe Council President can answer, or Mr. DeMayo. Where is that? Where do I see, what is half an inspector? Is that part inspector, part plan reviewer? Is that what
Plan
part-time is?
reviewer. That's a full-time position titled Plan Review / Inspector. So he has multiple jobs. He can do reviews in the office and do inspections in the field.
Thank you.
Any other questions? No other questions for Mr. Rodeo? Councilwoman Jermaine.
Thank you, Council. I do not have a question. I just want to really comment for the new addition in the building department. So we need it so much. So that's why I want to say thank you.
Oh, yeah, I think it's long overdue. I mean, it's a big city and we have 3 inspectors doing minimum housing / zoning / posting work that's been going on with no building permits. So everybody is very busy in our office. We have a great staff and we could certainly use a little help.
Council President Paplaskas.
Just have for Mr. Rodeo, thank you for being here, by the way. If you add another inspector, do you foresee it being a revenue generator, or it won't bring enough revenue in to cover the position?
I don't think it'll generate revenue, but it'd be a great asset to the citizens of the city. If we can process permits quicker, if we can do inspections quicker, if we can get to complaints quicker, I think all the residents of the city would benefit.
Okay, thank you.
Councilman Donegan.
Sorry, last question. Director Rodeo, if you in your dream situation, how many inspectors if you could have your pick, how many inspectors would you have in your department?
I'd have probably a building inspector and a zoning / minimum housing inspector, a property maintenance inspector.
Councilwoman Vargas.
Director Rodeo, good evening. Quick question. So you are fully staffed, everyone is in? There's no one out currently, right, in your department?
We do have somebody on injury. I'm not sure if it's still in our payroll. It's been out for quite a while.
Okay, and then do you foresee any retirements in that department within the next few months or so that you know of?
Not next few months, maybe next few years. We have an older aging staff there.
Okay, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Anyone else? Councilwoman Jermaine.
I just want to piggyback on the question Council President Paplaskas asked, if the addition of the inspector considered a revenue, and the director said no. So I would like to ask how, for example, if you find a violation, is there any, I know, for example, for littering, there is a $200 fee. And as much as you have inspector in the, going out on, if you have those violations, do we have any fee that will be collected that will constitute a revenue?
Well, the process we use, if we find a property maintenance violation, we notify the owner and give them 30 days to make repairs or to at least start some repairs, whatever the issues are. If they don't do that within 30 days, we send a second notice out, we lien the property, and we try and get it into the court system.
So you don't have any, you collect any fee at all in your building inspection?
Well,
So
no, we don't collect the fees. It's collected at the court, at the housing court.
okay. All right, thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, we'd like to thank you for being here and answering our questions. And you have a good evening.
Thank you, guys. You too.
Okay, we're going to move on to senior services, which has got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 different categories. Are you excited? Sure. Good evening, welcome. Let's all please be mindful of the time. And we welcome you tonight. If you want to explain a little bit about what it is you do, introduce your budget to us, and then we just might have a few questions for you.
Senior
Thank you.
services, as I said, was divided into 7 different departments, so therefore we have 7 different budgets. Essentially, they're all just different components of the senior center. So we have administration, which is kind of oversight programs, which manages all of our different exercise programs, our music programs, cards, chess, all of those different things. We have adult daycare, which is our ADS, which takes care of Cranston residents that are mildly cognitive impaired, and we provide them services during the day so family members can do other things. Social services, we provide help with Cranston seniors that have any issues at all. So we will help them with rent, we'll help them with housing. Any problem that comes up, our social services team deals with it. Transvan is our group of buses that go all over the city and pick up residents, bring them to the senior center or to hairdressers, grocery stores, wherever they need to go. We provide that service for a nominal fee. Nutrition is our kitchen, which cook for not only Cranston residents, but a number of other senior centers that we act as a caterer for. And our last organization is our retired senior volunteer program. We have a number of different programs. We have some that work in our kitchen. We have some that actually drive seniors around the state, helping them to grocery stores, doctors, and other things. So it's a variety of different programs that we run through our RSVP program.
Okay, Councilman Donegan has a question for you.
Questions, sorry. Good evening, Director. How are you?
Good.
In most of the departments, part-time help is being reduced. Some by 30%, some by 90%. Any indication why? I know a lot of them are
Depends on
running.
each department. Last year, when I presented the budget, I'd been on the job for about 2 months. So I was still in the learning process. So administration, I realized that we didn't need all the part-time help that we had. It was kind of a little bit redundant. So when our part-timer came over to City Hall, we just didn't rehire that person. So we have 2 ambassadors there. We had part-time help in Transvan, which was, we don't have any part-time drivers in Transvan. We only have full-time drivers. So we just eliminated that because it just wasn't necessary anymore. So in programs, it's actually not a reduction in part-time. If you look further down, we actually move those dollars down to instructors. We pay our instructors in 2 different ways. Some are part-time associates. That makes it easier for them to get their checks. And then the rest we pay under the instructor line as they perform services, we pay them. So we just shifted dollars down there because as we're adding new instructors, We're not really adding them on to the part-time list. We're really keeping them in that instructor line. And then nutrition is obviously related to the fact that we're going to be reducing our contracts at the end of the year. So we won't need as much part-time help as we go into the back half of fiscal 2023.
Staying on nutrition, and I feel like it was mentioned earlier, and I might have just missed it. On the expenditure side, that's going down by 100,000 from 725 to 625. Why?
It's basically the number of meals that we're preparing. So once we eliminate the contracts for both Blackstone and East Bay, we'll be preparing significantly less meals. So therefore, our cost, that basically is our cost of goods for producing our meals. So that price is going to actually, volume is going to go down.
Thank you.
Are you done, Councilman Donegan? For the time being? Okay, Councilwoman Vargas.
Thank you. Good evening, Director Cook. So it's a very similar question to Councilman Donegan I had as well on the the extra vacation time or the part-time positions, actually, I should say. So I'm going to stick with nutrition first because that's the one where we kind of left off. I know we're reducing nutrition because we're making our own now, our own food. Is that the
No,
understanding?
we're actually, Cranston is unique in the fact that we actually are a caterer for Blackstone and East Bay. So we actually provide meals to 16 other senior centers around the state. We're pulling out of those contracts. So we're actually, for the first half of the year, we need all the labor, everything we have, but in the back half, that'll reduce because we're not going to be providing all of those other senior centers with meals. We're only going to be focusing on Cranston.
Okay.
That's why that's going down.
So because we would provide them, the other cities and towns with meals, does that impact the revenue then? I mean, why are we cutting those programs? I'm just curious. Are we?
The problem is that right now we are in contracts. We've been in the same contracts for a number of years where we're paying a value that is significantly less than what's costing. The contracts don't have escalators regarding inflation and everything else. So as costs have gone up over the last 4 or 5 years, we've been eating that cost. As costs have going up recently, even greater, we're still having all of those costs coming on us because we can't pass them along to the vendor. So decision was made by the mayor that we should focus on Cranston and not focus on the rest of the state because there are other caterers that will provide those services.
Okay. And then, thank you for answering that. And then the other component was, again, piggybacking on what Councilman Donegan said, which was the part-time. You said some of the staff ended up actually coming here
Yeah,
versus
we had
going
one
there.
associate, Colonel Mancuso, who is downstairs now in the security office. He was an ambassador for us.
I think I was unaware of that. So
he's
that,
now here at City Hall. So when he left, we had that position. I made the determination that I had 2 other ambassadors, that I didn't need a 3rd ambassador at that point. So we just didn't ever fill that position. So that's why you see that cut in administration.
is that the only position that left from senior center and was transitioned to City Hall or elsewhere within the city?
Yes, I believe so. We have we have a couple part-time associates that work very limited hours. We have one woman that basically helps us with our newsletter. So she only works 5-6 hours a month. So we have a few of those associates.
All right, thank you. And so the extra vacation after 10 years under the 1600 Senior Services Administration, then that went just slightly down. Is that because someone retired? Is that?
I believe it is, I think that's related to the fact that I think if you look at it, I think one person decided not to take it. So it's an optional thing. They can either take the week's pay or they could take the vacation. So
Okay.
it's just, that they make that option and that choice. So they made the choice that they rather have the vacation than the dollars.
All right, great. I may have some additional questions later on, but I'm all set for the time being. Thank you.
Does anyone else have any questions? No other
Don't, then I
questions?
do.
Hey. Hold on a second. Any public comment for senior services?
I see no public comment.
No public comment for senior services. So Councilwoman Vargas, you may ask another question.
Sure. Through this budget that's being proposed for FY '23, is there any programs that are being cut? My hope is that is no, but I'm just making sure and
What do you
confirming.
mean programs for the seniors? No, we're actually looking to expand. So one of the things we're really working on as a group is kind of a membership drive. So we're looking at some direct mail pieces. We're adding in some, we brought back some programs that a lot of our instructors were very afraid to come back for a while. So we're bringing those back. So we just brought back ballroom dancing. Cards was suspended for a while. We're adding more events than we are taking away. Last night, we had a memory loss lecture from PhD from Rhode Island Hospital. We had 60 people attending that last night. You were, nice enough to come to our health fair last week. So we're adding more events to actually draw more people in. We're planning a historical.
That was Councilwoman Marino. I
Oh,
can't
I'm
take the
sorry, I
credit.
apologize. It was one of those.
Was there
we're
last
adding,
week.
Like historical tours. We're going to actually enlist working with the Historical Society. So we'll take the seniors around the different neighborhoods of Cranston and kind of relive the thing. I think that's kind of a Rhode Island thing. So we're adding programs, not taking away programs. Any program that we take away would only be because it's just not in attendance that we have, and we'll just move on to another program. But right now, we're not eliminating anything.
And the vehicles, are they in pretty
They're in
decent?
very good shape. And we have actually a number of older vehicles that the maintenance folks actually use for parks and other such things. So the vehicles that we're currently driving around every day are in very good shape.
All right, my last thing was even expenses and everything, you guys are pretty much, I guess, to the auditor, just to keep him on his toes. Just gonna show where we are on all of this. And while he's doing that, I just want to go ahead and again, thank you for running a great senior center. I think we have one of the best senior centers in the city of,
I think we do
in our
too.
state. So appreciate that.
We have a lot of fun over there.
Thank you.
So.
On the expense sides, administration's running at about 71%. Services and programs running about 71.8%. Adult daycare is running at 69%. Social services is running at 83%. Trans services is 69%. Nutrition, 62%. And the last is RSVP running at 67% to their current budget on expenses. On the revenue side, for programs running about 61.8%, adult daycares running about 49.48%. Social services is running at 150% to budget. Trans van services are running at 30%. Nutrition's running at 32.55%. And RSVP is running at 87%.
Thank you. So I have one more question. Where was Mr. Mancuso, under which budget item was his salary out of, and where did it?
I believe he was
in
under
our-
administration 1,600. So we had 52,832 last year. We have 37,000 even this year.
Second, under senior service administration, you said?
1,600.
Was he under, I'm sorry, I'm not seeing it. Was he under part-time? He was,
Part-time help.
he was under part-time.
Yes, he was.
Okay. Do you happen to know, maybe Director Perillo, or Mike Igo, where did he go as far as the city? What line, what budget within the department? Director Perillo? HR? I don't know if I'm derailing, but is that full, part-time as well, correct? All right, so we'll get eventually down to that department as well. All right, thank you.
Oh, Councilwoman Jermaine had her hand up.
Thank you. It's the program about, for the COVID pandemic. Things has changed.
Mhm.
So how do we keep this away, like some devices, technology for those elders during the pandemic? How we still have those programs, we keep them in case, or do?
A lot of we've eliminated most of the protocols at the center. We still have kind of a call list for people that are homebound that may have issues related to that, and we have that on, we call those folks on a regular basis. But the technology, we really don't have any technology related to assisting COVID folks. We've had the new computer lab that people can come in and use for different things for doctor, telemedicine and things like that. But I don't think we have anything technology related for COVID.
So you didn't use any technology, like if they cannot come and I know some center give tablet, and then they can participate in activity when they cannot come. So there was.
No, we did not. We don't have any. We only have like one tablet in the building. So we don't really have that technology that we could actually lend out at this point. No.
Okay.
Councilwoman Marino, I'm sorry.
Thank you. Hi, Director Craddock. And yes, the health fair was very nice
That was good.
to experience, and I do appreciate everything that you do and having a direct impact, on the citizens. It really makes a difference. My question for you, or I have just a few quick questions. Before, Councilwoman Vargas had asked you specifically about the one position employee, part-time employee that you did recall that came here. Before that, in your initial introduction, I believe you said you thought that there were two part-time people that came to City Hall, I believe was
No,
what
there
you
was
had
only
said.
one.
There was only one then? Okay. Director Perillo, is that right? Is that consistent? Okay. And then with respect to just the expenditures on the senior services RSVP, in the current tail end of third quarter here, the education program, the $2,000 allocated there, just what's the status of that? And then also the $5,000 for the nutrition program.
The education program basically covers a conference. It's been canceled for the last 2 years. It's going to be virtual this year. It's a requirement for AmeriCorps. Prior years, it was in Washington, D.C., so there was money allocated to actually support people to go down to the actual conference. That's what that is there for. We're anticipating that the conference will go live again in 2023. So that's where that money is there. Nutrition program is designed to support different activities, including a thank you party and those other types of things. Those have not happened for the last couple of years because of COVID. We are going to have one this year. So we may not spend all of that money, but we probably would need more for next year as we expand different programs. It's also to provide, we do tax assistance with the different manners. So they'll bring snacks and other things like that along with them to kind of make the event more interesting. Those are those $2 are.
Would that also be a similar logic with respect to the special activities? Because only a fraction of that was used.
It's kind of the events, the big events that we have, both for recruiting and also for appreciation.
So, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, I'd just like to mention to you that, as you know, I am a member of the Senior Center. I'm the only person on the council that's old enough to be a member.
Have you renewed your membership?
I do. I have the little thing on my keychain.
Check that one.
I have a lot of friends that go there. They play cards on Tuesday,
Yes.
and I get a lot of good feedback. So keep up the good work.
Thank you.
Stay on top of the budget.
That's the goal.
All right. Thank you very much for coming here tonight and filling us in. We appreciate it.
Thank you. Have a good evening.
Oh, is Ray Sinapi still with you?
Yes,
Take good care of him.
I always do. He's my guy that keeps me out of trouble in the kitchen.
All right, and we're gonna finish up tonight with Cranston Community Grants, which looks like a level funded item here. You have anything to enlighten us with that?
You know, Chairman, I feel bad. I don't know if Joanne knew about tonight's meeting. Maybe she did, she didn't, but she usually comes, but last year I think she missed it, and I don't know if
Can we have a
she-
motion to continue it to,
with CCAP.
Motion to continue.
is that
Second.
what we need to do?
Well,
We
I
have to
mean,
Set a date?
if it's a level funded budget, and maybe Mr. Igo can touch base with her and she can email us an update if there's anything. It's usually the
If you want
same
to
every year.
just touch base with her and see if she wants to send us any
Yeah,
information,
then we
we'll be
can,
glad to bring it up at the end of one of our other meetings.
Yeah, that's fine. Mr. Igo, do you have anything to add though on CCAP? Since it's,
I just was gonna say what you said, that
Okay.
it's level funded from last year, $180,000. And I believe we've spent 3/4 of it.
Right on target.
Yes, I mean, they send in a request to us usually quarterly. Sometimes it lags, but by the end of the year, they've received everything that they've requested.
They're currently running at 49.33%.
Yeah, so we've paid the first 2 quarters. The third quarter request is somewhere. Either it hasn't gotten to me yet or it hasn't come into the building, but there's 2 quarters left, so we have the third and fourth quarter payment to make.
Mr. Chairman, before we adjourn, can I just give a shout out to Nick Lima and Steve Frias, who sat with us all night on Zoom. And I'm sure Mr. Lima is working on his budget presentation as we speak, so good job, Nick.
Yeah, our next budget meeting will be on Monday, April 11th. We'll see everybody then. May I have a motion to adjourn?
So, second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Good night, everyone.